my best. Right, so the purpose of today's session is to provide an overview on applying to Oxford, Cambridge and other highly selective Russell Group universities. So we're talking really about the top of the Russell Group here, LSE, UCL, Imperial, but everything that I'm saying applies if your child is applying to an academically selective university. Having said that, obviously there are some subjects, law, where an increasing number of universities ask students to sit the LNAT, medicine, which I know we get lots of questions about medicine in the group. Students for pretty much every university will have to sit either the UCAT or the BMAT. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about applying for particularly competitive degree programs. And I'm also going to, I know there are a lot of people in the group who I think have younger children. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can do when your children are younger. And I've put together some resources to share with you. What I've going to do that I've discussed with Saba is I will put these into a Word and a PDF file that I will share with her to upload to the group, because there are some useful links and things like that. I will also share the slides. What you need to do is, if you'd like us to share the slides with you, to send, and I will put the link into the Facebook, which is sign up for our university's mailing list. We do quite a lot of free Zoom sessions, as well as these Facebook Live sessions. Obviously, I'm conducting via Zoom. If you sign up for our mailing list, you'll hear about all of those. Okay, so I'm going to start off by introducing myself. As I said at the beginning, any questions, please type those into the chat on the Facebook group, and I will answer those as you put them in. Okay, so very briefly about myself. I began as a student of literature, and I studied English at King's College, Cambridge, specialising in 18th and 18th century and Romantic literature. I taught at Cambridge for many years. I don't do that anymore because I run my two businesses full-time: Independent Thinkers Education, that provides one-on-one support for students and families, and Independent Thinkers courses. Over the years, we've supported hundreds of students with university applications, probably in fact thousands, and helped hundreds of students get Oxbridge offers. And we've got 100% success rate for students getting into Imperial, LSE, UCL, KCL, and also medical school applications, including international students. So we support international students. As some of you will be aware, if you're not resident in the UK, say for example your child is at a boarding school in the UK, or you're applying from outside the UK, your child attends a school in China or Hong Kong or India, you will have to apply for as an international student, and there is a quota on places for medicine and dentistry for international students. And we also work with many top independent schools, helping them with their Oxbridge applications, including Eton and Habs Girls. Okay, so these are my contact details. I'll also put those in the chat when I finish the session. So what I'm going to start with is what makes a strong application for one of these universities. And the answer is these qualities that I'm putting here. Now, what I think is important about these qualities, and when we talk about high levels of prior academic attainment, the next section I'm going to go on and talk about GCSEs, GCSEs, A Levels, IB and UPQ, because I know we have a lot of questions about those in the group. So we'll come to that in a minute. One of the most important things for any Oxbridge application, and I would also say any application for medicine, is what we call super-curricular engagement. So what that means is engaging with the subject that you want to study beyond the curriculum. Now, there are some subjects, medicine is one, management is another. You know, LSE has a very prestigious management degree. Oxford has a prestigious economics and management degree, where you're unlikely, well, medicine is not studied at school, and management, there is an IB business management, there is an A-level business management, but a lot of, especially academically selective schools, don't offer those subjects. So you need to demonstrate interest in the thing that you're going to study. Now, clearly, that can be related to what you're studying now. So what I do with students, if we're working on a medical school personal statement, you know, we talk about how what they're studying in biology and what they're studying in chemistry will feed in to what they want to study. But this showing that you're exploring the subject beyond the school curriculum, and that includes work experience. And I've got a section on work experience later, because again, we get quite a lot of questions recently in the group about work experience, you know, what can my child do, etc., etc. So really, with super-curricular engagement, you're demonstrating certain qualities. You're demonstrating that you enjoy academic challenge and you've got an appetite for that, because a university degree at any of these institutions is going to be academically demanding. You're demonstrating passion and enthusiasm for your chosen subject, and you're demonstrating intellectual curiosity. You're also wanting to demonstrate advanced critical thinking and problem-solving skills, and what we call intellectual flexibility and teachability. Now, what I'm going to be doing throughout the presentation is coming back, as it were, if not literally, in the sense of reposting it, but referring back to this slide, because these qualities, you know, we talk a lot now, don't we, about mindset, and these are qualities that you can start developing at a much younger age. You know, don't get to year 12 and think, oh, I better show a bit of passion for my subject. What you want to be doing, and I'm guessing the majority of people watching this are parents, but there may be some students watching as well. What you want to do is you want to be thinking about how you can cultivate these kinds of qualities. These kinds of what you're wanting to do is how can you cultivate these kind of qualities from quite a young age. Okay, so I can see some questions coming up already, but I'm going to go a little bit on with the presentation before I answer those questions. Okay, so we get a lot of questions about GCSEs and IGCSEs, and I'm setting out what I think is the most useful thing for people to know. So one thing to be aware of is that, and you probably are painfully aware of this as parents, especially if you've got older children, is that someone's saying they can't see the slides clearly. I'm not sure what I can do about that. I'm just looking for my, I'm screen sharing the whole slide show. I'm not sure what I can do. Okay, someone's saying that's better now, that's good. I was just looking for my special screen wiping cloth that I had a minute ago, and I think my cat might be sitting on it. Anyway, so I apologize about that. So in terms of GCSEs, the point is that people no longer have, your universities no longer have these AS grades, because the UK system, the only exception will be if your child, and I suspect this is a very small minority of people, though it could apply to someone in the group, will be if your child is doing, right, he was sitting on it. I'm now going to just polish that a bit and hope that makes it clearer. So it is doing international A levels. They still offer the AS. So for example, Cambridge in particular used to use that data for selecting candidates for interview and refer back to it in admissions decisions. So what that means is GCSEs do matter. Oxford, I don't have access to this algorithm, it's secret, but what Oxford does is it takes your child's GCSE grades, it contextualizes them. So let's say your child's at Eton and has got 10 nines, you know, that's fine. I don't want to undermine your child's achievement, it's an impressive achievement, but there will be lots of other boys at that school who have those grades. Whereas let's say your child has got a mixture of 7 to 9s and they put you, and they're at a ordinary comprehensive school, that doesn't send a lot of candidates to top universities, they will put that into the algorithm. And I mean, sorry, they will put that into, they will basically come up with a number, which is the GCSEs in a context. So someone who's been at a not particularly high attaining school but has got all 7 to 9s will be on a similar, will be regarded similarly to someone who's been to somewhere like Eton and has got all 9s. What they then do when they've got that score is they plug it into an algorithm with the test, the admissions test score, and that's whether they decide whether you come to interview. Cambridge doesn't do it so mathematically, but Cambridge is still looking at them. If you look at GCSEs, for example, what GCSE requirements, if you're looking at a course at LSE, especially a popular course like economics or management, or engineering at Imperial, it will say, you know, we expect your child to have a majority 7 to 9 grades. So the best tip I can give for you here, and from personal experience, like I had to do GCSEs, I hated it. So my school does do physics and chemistry as compulsory GCSEs, and I hated physics. The teaching was appalling. But I knew I wanted to go to Oxbridge, so I made myself sit down and revise everything in the textbook to make sure I got an A, which was the highest grade available at the time. So, you know, if you're thinking about how to motivate your child, think about the long-term goals. I know GCSEs are a drag and kids end up having to do lots of subjects they don't like. The new 7 to 9 GCSEs, I think, are particularly tough because they've put more content in, and there's a lot of memorization and rote learning that, you know, 20 years ago was starting to go out of our education system. But just, you know, keep your eyes on the prize, and if you want to do medicine, you want to go to Oxbridge, make sure you've got a strong set of GCSEs. Do check entrance requirements for your chosen course. A few universities will stipulate certain GCSE grades. So for example, UCL Medicine will say you need a B or a 6 in maths and the English language. Make sure you get the grades. If you're aiming to study economics, management, maths, engineering, physics, physical, natural sciences, do additional maths GCSE. I will share this link with Saba and with the group, and you can probably do a screenshot or something of it now off the slides. This is the most well-known additional maths GCSE. It's called the FSMQ, the freestanding maths qualification. Most independent schools tend to do it. What they tend to do is just put the top math sets in for this thing, whether they want to do it or not. So, you know, you can see there's a very democratic process there, but it is worth doing this. If your child's school doesn't offer this and your child is very strong in maths and really likes maths, you know, go on the website, look at the contact details for the exam board, look at sitting it as an independent candidate. And organisations like UKMT and the Mathematics Trust are always, you know, if you've got under-resourced students who really want to do maths, they want to be there to support your child. Imperial as well, and I'm going to share some links for some great programs Imperial runs in a minute. If you're aiming for a science subject, engineering, medicine, do single, not double science. Now, all of this, there's a proviso that that is what your school offers. For science, it's going to be more difficult to do additional sciences as a private candidate because of the lab work and the practicals and things. So all of this is a proviso that your school offers it. If your school doesn't offer it, all of these universities want to encourage applicants from the widest range of backgrounds. So you just, you know, so basically, if the opportunity's there, take it. If the opportunity's not there, you will not be discriminated against. What will not look good is if you are at Eton or QE or HBS and it offers single science and you've done double science, and then you'll present yourself to study for a science degree. The other thing that you will find is that there will be a bigger gap or leap between going from the GCSE to A level. So you'll find the A level more challenging. So you'll find if you haven't done the single sciences. Okay, so A levels versus IB, we have a lot of questions about that. As I'm sure most of you are aware, we basically have, as far as AB and A levels are concerned, there are 3 types of schools in the UK. There used to be something called the pre-U that has been discontinued. And the reason that it's been discontinued, okay, great, Saba is here. That's reassuring. Welcome, Saba. The reason that the pre-U was popular because it assessed students at the end of their 2-year A-level courses. Now we've gone back to what are called the linear A-levels. The pre-U is being phased out. So if you've got a child doing A-levels at the moment, we've got students that we're supporting who are in year 12 at the moment who are still doing some pre-U's, but they're going to be the last cohort that do them. So in terms of schools, what we tend to have is schools that offer only A-level, schools that offer a double, a dual stream of A-level and IB. So I can give you examples, mainly in the independent sector: Cheltenham Ladies College, Godolphin and Latimer, Charterhouse, Bedford School, Bedford Girls School, and then ones that offer just IB. So for example, Sevenoaks would be a very famous example. There's some great state schools, Impington Village College, near where I live in Cambridge, outstanding state school. Hockerell Anglo-European College in Hertfordshire, another one that offer IB. Now, the thing to think about here is what suits your child. Of course, the issue with the IB, is that you have to do 6 subjects. So, I can think of so many students that I know. We support a lot of international students in Korea and Hong Kong and China, and that tends to be, there is the international A-level, but people tend to do the IB. That tends to be what schools offer. And I have these kids who are brilliant mathematicians and physicists, and they're stuck doing English and they hate it. And I keep saying, look, you don't have to read novels, let's read non-fiction, let's read stuff about science that interests you. Your English is really important for your future success. They're not convinced. So you're slogging away at these 6 subjects. The other thing about the IB is there is a huge amount of coursework. So within the IB, within your 6 subjects, for each subject you do something called an IA, an individual investigation, or maybe it's individual assessment, or internal, I think it's internal assessment, i.e. your school marks it. So you're going to be doing a piece of coursework that is going to be, potentially 20 or 30% of your mark for each of the subjects that you offer. You also have to do an EE, an extended essay, that's a bit like an EPQ. You can do it on any topic, and you have to do a TOK assignment. So what I find with the IB is it is a marathon, not a sprint, and a lot of students feel quite overwhelmed. Even very strong students can feel quite overwhelmed by the amount of coursework that they have to do and the constant pressure of deadlines. Now, on the one hand, you could say, well, that's a great preparation for life, because in life you're going to be in, especially if you want to do a demanding job, you're going to have a series of deadlines, and you're not just going to have, a set of end of term or end of year exams, or high stakes exams. But what I would say is, do think very, very carefully about what is going to work for your child. Universities do not discriminate. Universities will not look at a candidate and go, oh, let's take the A-level candidate, they must be better. Or let's take the IB candidate, that candidate must be better. But do be aware, I think, of what some of the challenges of the IB are. Now, in terms of the EPQ, because we get quite a lot of questions about that, great thing to do to demonstrate academic passion. Obviously, you can choose something that isn't in the A-level syllabus. So for example, if you do want to study medicine, you can do a medical related topic, you can do a management related topic, etc. However, if your school doesn't offer the EPQ, don't worry. So again, if these opportunities are there, take advantage, but don't feel that if you haven't done them, somehow there's going to be a problem. If we go back to this slide, there are lots of ways of demonstrating super-curricular engagement and passion. One might be doing the EE, one might be doing the EPQ, and certainly students of mine who've done those write about them on their personal statement, but it certainly isn't the case that if you haven't done that one thing, there is a problem. There isn't. There are plenty of other ways you can do that, and I'm going to come on to some of those in a minute. So just to say something about maths. degrees, economics at Cambridge, economics at LSE, economics at UCL, the language of economics in the modern world is maths, right? In the 18th century, which I studied, it wasn't maths. People did something called political economy, and you would get people who wrote whole books on ethics and politics and government policy who did economics. Economics, the language of economics now is maths. So what I say to any student who thinks he or she or they might want to do maths, engineering, physical sciences, economics, at university, medicine less so, because you need a certain competence in maths, but they're not worried about you having further maths for medicine. Do as much maths as you can. And I say this as someone who doesn't really like maths, but for all of those subjects, you cannot do enough maths. Now, these two links I've got here, which obviously feel free to screenshot, and I will share them with Saba as well. If you are at a school that is struggling to deliver maths effectively, and that is sadly true of a lot of state schools in the UK, they're not able to recruit maths teachers. I think we've got a national shortage of maths teachers because maths teachers are so, mathematicians are so, they all want to go into the City of London. That's what all the Cambridge engineering and maths people do. They all go in and make a lot of money as bankers or actuaries. But Imperial has these fantastic free online programs where if you're at a UK state school, you can sign up and you can get basically a free tutoring. It's group and resources. I don't think it's one-on-one, but you can get free tutoring and mentoring, one for single maths and one for what we used to call double maths, further maths. You're only allowed to sign up for one course, so be aware of that. But if you're at a school that is struggling to offer you further maths support, this is a fantastic free program. And then the final thing is I've just shared the link here from UCAS about contextual A-level offers. So we talked about looking at the GCSEs in the context in which they've been achieved, which all universities do. Do make sure to see when you apply to the university whether you might be eligible for this contextual offer, because that means that, potentially basically you will be offered lower grades that take account of your circumstances. The usual kind of criteria apply. It's to do with postcode, it's to do with what kind of school you attend, it's also to do with your own personal circumstances, whether you've had health challenges, been in care, etc. But do research all of this, because I have had candidates, some people that we supported this year, who I was genuinely surprised that they were eligible for contextual offers. So do check all of that out, and as I say, I post that link and I can post some others as well. Okay, so moving on from the A-level and GCSE questions. Sorry, I've just managed to click into the wrong group. Right, okay, so I just wanted to go back to any questions, just seeing if we've got any questions on. Okay, so I'm just going to answer before I move on to this, because while we're talking about A-levels and GCSEs, my daughter does 4 A-levels. Do universities only look at the top 3 grades and not the 4th one? The answer to that is no. What I say about 4 A-levels is, and I know there is a lot of misinformation about this. So for example, I've seen a company called Crimson who are advertising very aggressively on Facebook for their online A-level academy. And they are saying, oh, doing 4 A-levels will help you get into Oxbridge. That's actually not true. You only need 3. My honest view is that if your child is doing 4 and is coming out with something like A star, A star, A, B, or A star, A star, A, C, and it is not possible to push that 4th subject up to the level of the other 3 subjects, ditch it. That's my honest opinion. You will see candidates. A lot of people who apply to Oxbridge do have 4 A-levels, but it's by no means obligatory. That is just a reflection of who applies. Ditto medicine. Okay, you can't change, I don't think you can change your fee status in, I don't think that you can change your fee status in the midst of your course, no. The other thing to be aware of in terms of the 4A level, 3A level thing is if you apply with 4 subjects, what can sometimes happen, and I've had students apply with 4 or 5 subjects and they've got Oxbridge offers, and Oxbridge clearly hasn't wanted them to give up any of the subjects, so they will give them the standard offer, you know, 2 A stars and an A, but then they will say, but you need to pass the other 2. So one thing you definitely need to be aware of is if you go into the process of the application process offering a certain number of A levels, if you then get an offer, you then need, which you accept, you then need to seek the permission of the university for to give up a subject. So I would say if you're going to give up a subject, do it. Think about doing that before you put your UCAS application in, i.e. think about it now. Okay. Computer science, someone's asking about now. Again, you cannot, I should have put that here when I said maths, engineering, physical science, economics. You cannot do enough maths for computer science. The majority of candidates applying for Oxbridge, Imperial, UCL computer science will be offering maths and further maths. Maths is a good choice as a 3rd A level, usually with biology and chemistry for medicine. Interestingly, medicine, the subject they mandate is chemistry, not biology. But it isn't mandatory. I have some fantastic tutors, in fact, who did IB, and they did not do higher level maths. They did higher level geography as their 3rd subject. Okay, so I'm now going to move on to the super-curricular stuff. Where do I start? So we've talked a bit about the EPQ. The other thing that is excellent to do is any form of super-curricular essay prize or competition. Now, there's a whole bunch of these. What I've done here is I've included 3 at the top that are still open, because a lot of these essay prizes have now finished for the year. But if you have a child in year 12 or year 13 now, some of them will be eligible for year 13 students, they can enter these competitions now. The Young Economist of the Year, the RES prize, the second link I've got there, that's one of the most prestigious economics essay competitions. If you win that, or even if you're shortlisted, it's a fantastic thing to write about on your personal statement. That's open to, I think, the 10th of July. The Robinson College Essay Prize is open at the moment. That's got a July deadline. And Trinity has a series of prizes. Some of them, the deadlines have gone. So the deadline has gone for, I think, so I know we've got a student working on a politics essay prize at the moment, so that's still open. So these are fantastic things to do. As I say, this is just a smattering, and I put the 3, if you go to the Trinity URL, you then see a list of the prizes. You can click and see if your subject's still open. The Sheffield one I've put up, that's shut for this year, but what is really good about that competition is that's open to students in years 10 and 11, as well as in students in year 12. So, you know, I was talking about, let's get into this super curricular stuff as early as possible. And that's an excellent, you know, save that URL and maybe your child can enter that next year. British Biology Olympiad, British Physics Olympiad, Cambridge Chemistry Challenge, UKMT, that I know lots of people in these groups are familiar with. Obviously the UKMT is offering challenges at all levels. So, you know, keep monitoring that website. If you've got any concern that your school is not entering your child for that, go and talk to the school, talk to UKMT. They will be able to arrange that. I had a student this year who is home educated, and she was able to sit the junior mathematics challenge at a local centre that her father arranged, and actually she did brilliantly. So, you know, I think one thing I would say, you know, we're all consumers now, aren't we? But you know, whatever the school is, it's a grammar school, it's a comprehensive, it's a private school, if you feel your child is not these opportunities are not being shared with your child, you know, you go in and say you want these opportunities to be shared with your child, because for some of them, the school needs to, obviously my student could enter as a private candidate because she's homeschooled. Some of them, the school needs to enter you. So as Saba said, you know, I'm a super competitive person. So obviously I want to win and we all like to win. And it, you know, it gives us a kind of adrenaline rush. But actually, you know, participating in these things is fantastic. I had a student a few years ago who entered a couple of economics essay competitions, didn't come anywhere, but he wrote about both of them on his personal statement. He was interviewed about Cambridge, he was interviewed by Cambridge, and he got an offer very, very quickly from LSE in you know, very soon after he'd put in his application form. Someone's saying, can you participate in UKMT even if you don't study maths at A level? So UKMT does challenges at different levels. There's the junior challenge, which is generally for year 7s, but year 6, some year 6s enter it as well. Then there's the intermediate challenge, which is up to year 11. And then there's what's called the senior challenge. My understanding is that it's an interesting question that I haven't been asked before. My answer is I don't see why not. You know, I think that the further on you go with the UKMT challenges, they will be setting problems that are not, you know, they're more difficult and they're multi-step and they require logic as well as mathematical knowledge. So they will be different from the kind of problems that are set in GCSE or A level, which are more routine, more a question of, I would say, technique rather than thinking sometimes. But I don't see why you shouldn't enter it. And I think if you want to, I would absolutely flag that with the school. And if you go on the UKMT website, I would contact them about that and ask. I think they also have some free mentoring programs for students as well. One of my friends, he's a very able mathematician, went to a comprehensive school, came to Cambridge, got a triple first in maths. He was involved in that. So, you know, do reach out to people like UKMT, the National Mathematics Trust, which I will find a link for and add that when I share the links with Saba. How useful is the EPQ? Someone's pointing because they missed that. I think the short answer to that is it's a useful thing to do. It's a great way to demonstrate super-curricular attainment and engagement and interest in your subject, but it's by no means the only way. So if the school doesn't offer it, or it's going to be difficult to do it, don't worry too much about it. You know, the point is that there are a lot of these opportunities and all you need to do is take some of them. Okay, so now I'm talking a little bit more about other super-curricular activities. One of the things I mentioned when I sort of scheduled this talk with Saba and we talked about is mindset, and I was talking about that in terms of going back to this about what qualities do you want to demonstrate. You want to demonstrate passion, you want to demonstrate enjoyment, appetite for challenge, and intellectual curiosity. And as well as these competitions and Olympiads that you can take part in, certainly for the kind of world that I'm in most of the time, which is the humanities and social science world, you know, you'll be pleased to hear I don't offer my own services as a maths or science tutor. I use specialists for that. You know, people say one of the best things that you could do, one of the best things that you can do is reading. Again, I will share these links, but always obviously you can note them down. Cambridge has very helpfully put up now a web page on super-curricular activities. My own college has a reading list for each subject that you might apply to study at Cambridge. Doesn't matter if you're not applying to Cambridge, you want to apply to UCL for physics, you know, have a look at what they're recommending. PPE, I often get asked about. The Balliol, one of the great kind of bastions of Oxford PPE. The famous phrase, effortless, the idea that the undergraduates of Balliol were so clever they were able to demonstrate effortless superiority has become kind of apocryphal. You know, they've got a great economics reading list. They've also got a great law reading list as well here. And then I've given you some STEM suggestions. So Cambridge has a maths reading list. I guess, you know, it's not necessarily articles about maths in the sense I might read an article in the newspaper. A lot of it is links to on details of books that have sets of problems to work through. Maths Step, the Maths Step website, which is a free website that I've linked to here, that is excellent. And not just for people who want to do STEP, because it's got a whole lot of more challenging maths problems on it. And it has some transition from A level to STEP problems, so you can kind of work through the whole site. I think they've got videos and things as well. It's basically a whole free preparation course for STEP. And then I've also, the Royal Institution runs very affordable masterclasses for students of all ages. So I was sending something to a parent who was asking me recently, about, you know, what might her year 6 or 7 child do over the summer. I was saying, you know, go to the Royal Institute, it's in London. They have all kinds of online and in-person masterclasses that are very, very reasonable. They also do Christmas lectures where they get a big name in STEM to lecture each year. In terms of the kind of how we approach this reading, absolutely take it beyond what you're doing. Maybe start with something that you're doing now. So, you know, an example I could give very straightforwardly from my own discipline, English. Let's imagine you're doing your A-level English, and as I did, you're doing Pride and Prejudice. You know, read another Jane Austen novel, or read a book that talks about the history in which, the historical context in which Jane Austen was writing. You know, take what you know and jump off from there. Let's imagine you're studying a particular topic, the construction of the cell, and I know that's a slightly sort of, you know, human cellular biology. Look and see what biology lectures are available to watch, not just the Christmas lectures at the Royal Institute, and watch some of them. A few more links here as well. So US universities in particular have put a whole bunch of first-year undergraduate courses online. Now, some of those, the STEM ones, are probably going to be more difficult to access. They're more suitable for older students because you're not going to have the knowledge base in chemistry or whatever in, you know, year 7 or year 8 or year 9 to be able to understand particularly what's going on in the lecture. But certainly the humanities and social science courses are available on there to watch. They also will have courses related to subjects that you're not necessarily studying at school. So those are fantastic, they're free online courses. Yeah, I agree with Saba there. The Royal Institute is fantastic, really wonderful institution. Podcasts, famous podcasts, the Talking Politics podcast by a Cambridge professor of politics, David Runciman. He's actually just wrapped that up now, and he's doing a different podcast on political theory. But what you can do is you can go and access the whole archive of him discussing political issues there. And I've got another good podcast here from Goldsmiths University in London on law. Oxplore is the Oxford University kind of enrichment website, and what they've done is they've structured the website around questions. So they will ask a question like, what does it mean to be human? And then you can click through and see all kinds of links and articles and things. It's a free online, I guess it's a magazine or resource called The Conversation, which I think it's a charity, and they get university academics to write about sort of topics of interest. So for example, let's say we're talking about medics. One thing that people are asking, what do medics need to do? Keep up with current affairs pertaining to the NHS. This is the kind of thing where you can go online to The Conversation and see a whole bunch of articles about coronavirus, but the science behind it and behind containing it, but also how different healthcare systems and different governments have responded to that and dealt with it. Okay, so what I'm now going to do, and I'm conscious of time, so I'm probably going to end up going through some of this stuff quite quickly, is just to show you in practice a couple of examples of UCAS personal statements. And I'm doing this not because this is a talk on UCAS personal statements, but the qualities I was talking about intellectual curiosity, academic extension, how a student might go about writing about those on his or her personal statements. And I think what I want to get across here, which actually I skipped over when I was talking about reading, I'll just go back to that slide. Extend yourself beyond the curriculum, but also read critically. So, you know, when you're engaging in this additional reading, ask yourself questions. Don't just think about, oh, I'm going to process lots of facts and lots of information. You know, it's tempting for all of us to do that when we read, but think about what evidence is put forward for the argument in the book or the article. How convincing, how strong is that evidence? How might you challenge the argument? What evidence might you need to do that? So trying to get into that habit of really reading critically is important. So going on to this example personal statement for Cambridge Economics. So what you can see here is this student is writing about an unfamiliar and intriguing concept. So what he's doing is he's talking about something that wasn't covered. As far as I'm aware, development economics, it may be something that will come into the syllabus, but I think it's in the economics A-level syllabus. So he's talking about reading something beyond the curriculum. He's explaining a concept, and then he's thinking, okay, well, actually, does this concept that economists have come up with really apply to the real world? And he's questioning that. So the point of this is to just show you in one sort of snapshot how a personal statement might go about demonstrating these qualities that you need to demonstrate. Another example here, and I'm going to show some medicine ones in a minute, but I'm going to do the medicine on work experience, is Cambridge HBS, LSE, Politics and International Relations. We've got a student talking about Leviathan, Thomas Hobbes's great 17th century work of political philosophy, written in the wake of the English Civil War. Please, you know, do go out and read that if you haven't read it. He's talking about reading that, and then he's talking about, you know, can we take these concepts developed in the 17th century and apply them today, which is actually what political philosophers often do. They read Kant, they read Hobbes, they read Hume, they read Rousseau, and they think about whether those concepts are still concepts that are useful for us. Okay, so going on to work experience. We've had quite a few questions about work experience, and people were asking, for example, does work experience need to be linked to GCSE subjects? The short answer for that is no. I guess it's quite hard sometimes to link work experience to GCSE subjects. The only exception might be something like if your child is very keen on science. I'm just going to drink some water. If your child's very keen on science, I've had a lot of students who have done work experience in labs. That can also be great for medicine because, you know, there is that communication and kind of two-way relationship between scientific research and clinical treatments and developing clinical treatments of disease. But generally speaking, Ray work experience, what I would say is this: for medicine, veterinary medicine, and indeed dentistry, it's essential. I will add the link on dentistry there, but I have put the links there where they tell you really you need to have work experience in order to apply for those subjects. Clearly, there's been some flexibility on that with what's been going on recently with COVID. But generally speaking, for those subjects, you need work experience. For anything else you might want to apply for, even a subject that seems quite practical, quite vocational, so law, engineering, economics, political science, you do not need work experience. What it can be is it can be a way of demonstrating your interest and your engagement with your subject. So in that sense, I'm coming back really to the EPQ, which is, if that is available as an opportunity and your child can integrate that into his or her school, all the work that has to be done for A levels or IB, then sure, that's fine, but it's by no means obligatory. So it's one thing that you can write about. The absolute key with any kind of work experience, and I see this every year in personal statements, it happens with reading as well, actually, is there can be a tendency for students to just list, I've done this work experience. What you need to do is you need to reflect on it and think about, what did you learn from it? So I would always suggest to students, keep some, unless your memory is brilliant, and even if it is, everyone's memory is to an extent fallible, when you do the work experience, keep some notes about the work experience so that you can remember what you saw, and you can then reflect on it in the personal statement. And you can link work experience, as I say, to academic interests. So let's say you want to apply for law. There is by no means any expectation that you'll have done a work experience or any requirement that you've done it, but I have certainly had people who have, and have then reflected on what the law they've seen and how that has helped them develop their passion for law. I'm going to answer a couple of questions here. How to contact labs for work experience. I think the answer there is quite simple. I think you identify some labs and you write to them. With all of these things, it's always worth writing. What's the worst thing someone can say? No. Yes, hospitals do take students for work experience, but you would need to check what the current situation is with the COVID rules in individual hospitals. Now, what I wanted to show everybody here, because I think we all understand that you want to do medicine, you need to do some medical work experience. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter whether it is in a hospital or whether it is in a GP surgery, but you need to do some kind of medical work experience. The other thing that I would say there is, I've sometimes had students who've changed their mind about whether they want to do medicine or dentistry, or who've done work experience in one or the other. You can still make that work for you. So let's say you want to apply to be a dentist, you can obviously write about medical work experience and what you learned from that. Same with medicine, you could write about dentistry work experience, but you would still need some hospital medical work experience. Anyway, the point about this is just to give you a sense of the kind of thing a student might write when he's done voluntary work experience that isn't medicine. And what medical schools really like, because being a doctor, of course it is about having good scientific knowledge and good technical knowledge, and being able to apply that to make effective diagnosis and prescribe effective and enact effective treatments. But it is also about your ability to relate to people, relate to patients. And medical schools really like people who've done some kind of voluntary work. So people are saying, what can I do over the summer? Something that is much easier to get than the work experience in a hospital or GP surgery is to do some kind of voluntary work experience. Quite a lot of schools have programs for this, but I can tell you that if you go to your local old people's home or a local charity, they're going to be delighted that your child is volunteering to help them out. And what's very good about what this student's done is he's talked about what he's done, but he's also reflected on it and linked it to his medical interests. So what he's shown here is how he's committed to communicating with people, even people who communicate in a different way from him, which is fantastic skill and sort of attitude to have as a doctor. But he's also talking about what he learned from this voluntary experience and linking it to medical interests. Okay, what I've got here is a talking about medical work experience. But what I wanted to draw attention to here is, again, it's how you present the work experience. It's not just a case of ticking a box, I've done some work experience, move on to the next point on my personal statement. It is also about explaining what you learned and what interested you. So this student has talked about what she saw on her medical work experience, and then she's linked it to this point about multidisciplinary teams. Okay. And here I've got a good example. So as I say, management, economics, engineering, law, subjects where you might think, yes, I could do some work experience, but it is by no means obligatory. But here's a good example of a student reflecting on some work experience that he's done and talking about how undertaking this work experience made him think about, you know, things that he is then planning to study in his degree, which are, you know, how does someone operate and run a business? How does someone manage, you know, human resources questions, which again are questions which you will, or issues which you will study during a management degree. So, you know, it's really about taking what you've done and reflecting on it in an effective way and presenting that reflection in an effective way, rather than, oh, you must have done certain things. As I say, the only exception is medicine, but even there, how you present your experience and reflect on it is absolutely crucial to writing a strong personal statement. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to talk very briefly about the specifics of Oxbridge. And I know, you know, I'm conscious, I know we started a bit late, but I'm conscious I'm kind of up against time now. So applying to Oxbridge. Okay, so the difference between applying to Oxbridge and other universities is really that there are more steps that you need to take. Everywhere you do your GCSE, Cambridge has an additional called the supplementary application questionnaire, where you can write an additional personal statement on why you want to study the subject at Cambridge. For social science and humanities subjects at Cambridge and some such subjects at Oxford, you submit examples of your written work. You basically submit example essays, which you don't do for any other university, and you also sit an admissions test. Obviously, you also sit admissions tests for medicine and law at other universities. Okay, so in terms of my sort of core tips for Oxbridge, people often ask about choosing between Oxford and Cambridge. There are differences in the degree programmes. So for example, in the natural sciences, Cambridge offers engineering, it offers maths, it offers computer science, but all of its natural science degrees are offered as part of this interdisciplinary degree structure called the natural science tripos. Oxford has single honours degrees in the sciences. So Oxford has physics, it has chemistry, it has biology. So if you just want to study biology, I would say applying to Cambridge isn't the best idea, unless you're prepared to do, in the first and the second year, do quite a lot of other subjects alongside your biology. So the main differences, clearly, they always say clearly, but the universities are recruiting very similar types of students and are looking for very similar types of students. However, they do have quite different admissions process. So Cambridge interviews a much larger proportion of applicants than Oxford. The current policy is around 80%. I personally think that's going to be tweaked in the next few years, but that's still the current policy. What Oxford does is it reduces the number, it wants a ratio of 3, or in some cases 2.5 applicants to a place for each course. So what that means is when it has a very popular subject like medicine, law, economics, management, computer science, PPE I've listed here, for those subjects, it interviews only 19 to 40% of applicants. So Oxford Medicine, for example, interviews 25% of applicants. And what Oxford does, of course, we talked about earlier about GCSE grades and the algorithm that factors in the GCSE grades and how it contextualizes them and converts all your grades to one numerical score. Yes, there's the personal statement, that is important, the school reference, the predicted grades. But what is important, I would say, for many, many Oxford degrees is the admissions tests. So what that means in practice is that, let's take PPE. There are many admissions tutors in Oxford who believe the TSA to be the most effective way of deciding who should get a place. So what that means is if you do very, very well on the TSA, you will most likely get to interview, and that TSA score will be looked back on after the interview. And I have definitely had candidates who have, because you can find out your TSA score after you've sat the test, it's several months later, but who've got TSA scores of, they've basically got 4 marks on the TSA, and I think that has been a really big factor in them getting admission. Colleges are more important than at Cambridge than Oxford. So what Oxford has done is it's centralised admissions for many, many subjects. So what does that mean? What it means is that when you apply to an Oxford college, you may well, and it's got nothing to do with the quality of your application, you may well end up being interviewed by another college, because they decide who's going to be shortlisted centrally by department. If one college seems to have a very large number of applicants and another one has fewer, they give some of the applicants from the college with lots of applicants to the one with not very many. For Cambridge, it doesn't work like that. For Cambridge, there are a few subjects that do a sort of version of that. So classics and religious studies do a version of that. So if you apply for classics for Cambridge, you will be interviewed by 2 different colleges. But generally for Cambridge, you will be interviewed by the college that you applied to. And that does mean that you can be a little bit strategic. I say to students, do not apply, for example, to Trinity Maths unless you're a nationally competitive mathematician. That may sound a bit harsh, but you know, that college is the kind of beacon for maths in Cambridge. So be very, you can be a bit strategic, and some of the colleges, the modern colleges, for example, are a bit easier to get into. Okay, so I need to, I think, try and wrap up quite soon. So I don't have time in this talk to go into any details about admissions assessments. All I would say is they're becoming more and more important in selecting candidates for interview. I've just talked about how important they are for Oxford. Colleges and departments do look back at test scores after interview. So, let's say you've done a borderline interview, but you've done really, really well in the admissions test. That could be the thing that gets you the place. So I think the general message on these is do not underestimate how much preparation you should do. Do not do a couple of practice tests before the exam and hope for the best. We've now got the summer stretching before us. And of course, I know everyone wants to go away on holiday, and we've all been, as it were, locked away for 2 years. Absolutely take your family holiday or whatever, but really do spend time preparing for the admissions tests. For TSA, for BMAT section 1 that have the same type of questions, you can't do too much practice. There's a huge amount of practice, a huge amount of past papers available online. You need to check. There were some in the old in the version of the BMAT from up to a couple of years ago, there were some data response questions that have now gone. Don't bother practicing those because you don't need to do them, but you do need to. You can use all of those past BMAT papers for practicing the critical thinking and problem solving questions. I've got some links here again, I can share them. We can find them very easily if you just Google, Oxford Physics, for example. But the Oxford tests that are subject specific, the Oxford tests that are subject specific, like physics, and the PAT, the physics test is taken for engineering, they publish a syllabus. And, you know, we had a candidate a few years ago who got an offer from Trinity for chemistry, absolutely brilliant in Cambridge. He was really, really committed, and he sat down with the syllabus for the natural science admissions assessment, and he worked through every single element of the syllabus and made sure he knew it back to front. Now, you might say that sounds excessive. All I would say to you is Oxbridge is getting more and more competitive. There's an Oxbridge, the director of admissions for Cambridge is a woman called Dr. Sam Lucy, and she does various presentations at schools. You can probably find some presentations she does online. And the first thing that she says, I've seen her give her presentation to a group of schools, and the first thing she says is, look at the graph. This is what's happened to Oxbridge applications over the last 20 years. They've massively increased, and it's internationally competitive. So we're getting people applying from, a lot of people applying from outside the UK. Don't, as I say, don't underestimate how important it is to work through this syllabus. For BMAT section 2, Cambridge Assessment, which sets the test, publishes a very detailed syllabus guide on the website that is available for free to all applicants. I haven't put the link here, but I'm happy to add it for people, or find it and put it in the chat. And make sure that your child works through that science syllabus. Revise the physics. Most medics are not doing physics at A level. They haven't done physics since GCSE. Revise the physics. Okay, so I'm now going to talk, and then I'm going to wrap up. But if anyone's got any questions, I think I've covered the questions either in the presentation, I've answered them as we've gone along, but anyone's got any other questions, please put them in the chat and I will answer them for you live, as it were. Also, if you want something occurs to you later, put it in the chat and I'll come back into the group and answer it. So critical thinking, problem solving and intellectual flexibility. I've talked a little bit about how you might demonstrate that in terms of your own reading, and how you want to think about, assess that, you know, what's the evidence for this? How strong is this argument? Does this argument work? These are, I suppose, qualities that you want to be demonstrating throughout your application. We looked at how you can demonstrate them on the personal statement. We talked about how you might demonstrate them when engaging in super-curricular activities that you then talk about. What I'm now, clearly these are being assessed in the entrance assessments. What I'm now going to talk about is how they're being assessed at the interview. And I've given you a nice image here of Bloom's taxonomy, a sort of famous educational theory in which he puts the intellectual qualities in a hierarchy. And really, when you look at this, remember and understand need to be there. So especially for SEM subjects, that's why I was saying learn the syllabus and work through it meticulously, because knowledge, it's not the case that kind of, you know, we have a knowledge and skills debate in our education system. Bunch of people saying let's do lots of knowledge, bunch of people are saying let's do lots of skills. The reality is, if you read the evidence base in educational psychology, you need knowledge in order to be able to develop the higher level skills. So in terms of super-curriculars, demonstrate you're doing more than regurgitating what you've read or what you've watched. Interrogate the evidence, evaluate arguments, develop counter arguments, discuss hypotheses. If you were interviewed at Oxbridge and you've submitted an essay as part of your application, usually you have a submitted work interview where you will be challenged on the arguments that you yourself have put forward in your written work. So before the interview, sit down with your essay, annotate your essay, and think through possible counter arguments and how you might cope with those. Okay, think about, can the problem or the question be approached differently? Is there more than one valid perspective? Is there more than one way of finding the answer? One thing that I say a lot to students applying for Oxbridge is, you know, we live in a culture now, I think an educational culture, where being right has become very important. So when I took my exams at school, a 70% was an A, and that was the top grade. Now, the very strong students who are applying for medicine and applying for Oxbridge are going to be getting, 95% in school exams, sometimes 100% in school exams, and they are not necessarily comfortable with the idea that there isn't a right answer. And of course, we as adults must take the blame for this, in the sense that you look at GCSE and A-level mark schemes and they are more and more prescriptive. So, but what you need to think about with Oxbridge is, and for a medicine interview as well, it doesn't matter if there isn't a right answer. It doesn't matter, one, there isn't always a right answer. Two, let's imagine you're doing a maths problem and you go wrong in the interview and you suggest a way of solving it that doesn't work. That is not going to be fatal to your interview. What your interviewer is going to be interested in is, if you make a misstep or you try something out that doesn't work, how do you cope with that? Do you have the intellectual resilience and the persistence to get back up and suggest another strategy for solving the question? Are you able to ask for help? What often happens in an Oxbridge interview is people will teach you something and see how quickly you pick it up. Can you process the concept and can you then apply it? Do you have what I'm calling intellectual flexibility? Okay, so final slide here, the interview as mock tutorial. So what Oxbridge, and there's a lot that's true for medicine as well. I'm talking more about sort of panel and interviews for medicine, not for MMI interviews, which is a different thing that I'm not going to talk about today, because there isn't, were the world enough in time, as the poet says. But Oxbridge interviews are very much mock tutorials. What they want to know in the Oxbridge interview is, how is this candidate going to respond in small group teaching? Is this going to be somebody who contributes? Also someone who, as I say, is willing to correct themselves and think about why they were wrong and reflect on why they were wrong or why something didn't work. Someone who's going to listen to what other people say and take that on board and integrate that into their own perspective and their own argument. Those are the qualities that they're looking for. Now, there's a trend towards set tasks for interview, by which I mean, let's imagine I'm sitting in my Oxbridge College and I'm interviewing 40 lawyers. I'm going to give you all the, let's say, legal problem. And the reason is so that you can compare across, you can compare the cohort, whereas if you've given people different tasks to do, it's quite difficult to do that. I talked about submitted work and how those interviews will work. There's a link there for an official interview demonstration. These are quite useful. These online interview demonstrations, there are a lot of them online on YouTube, uploaded by Oxbridge colleges. I think the only thing I would be aware of is those videos want to make you feel comfortable and make you feel at home in doing this interview. Now, and not put people off. And that's very important. It's very important that anybody who feels that they have something, has got the grades, feels that they can apply to Oxbridge, but do be aware that the questioning in an interview and the level of intellectual engagement in an interview can become very intense and quite demanding. It's not personal at all. It's about having that high level intellectual debate. So the kind of questions the interviewers are going to be asking are, how do you think through or approach a question? Process, as I say, is very important. We were talking about how it's great to enter essay competitions even if you don't win them. They're interested in process, not necessarily in the result. What will happen every year is that there will be many candidates who get offers who, especially in maths and sciences, where they give you very difficult and demanding problems, who haven't been able to solve the problem, but they've been able to get part of the way there, and they've been able to talk the interviewer through their process and explain their thinking and show that they're a methodical and persistent thinker. Are you able to apply concepts and methods you already know? So often they will they will give you something unfamiliar, and they will be looking for you to use ways of thinking and ways of problem solving that you've already developed in a new context. As I said, often in an Oxbridge interview, you will be taught a new concept quickly and then asked to apply it or discuss it. Talked about the no right answers. And do you ask questions that help you move forward when you get stuck? One big tip I would say for interviews, I know that they're intimidating. I personally find interviews very difficult. You know, I've always found them quite difficult and quite stressful, but the tutors in the interview want to help you. And actually, the person who asks questions and says, I'm not quite sure about this, could it be this? Or could you give me a hint? Or could you help me with this? That's going to be getting, you know, a ginormous tick in the has this person done well in this interview box. Okay, so I know I sort of rushed through there. We had a lot to talk about. Someone's asked about BMAT papers. Just go on to the Cambridge Assessment BMAT past paper. Just Google BMAT past papers Cambridge Assessment. They're all there for free. Someone's asked about a computing personal statement. Really, it's the qualities that I've talked about. It's about showing that engagement beyond the curriculum, really explaining why you want to do the subject, showing that passion for it, being able to reflect. Certainly one of, you know, some students do computer science A level, plenty of students apply and get offers for computer science with maths and further maths, but without the computer, without computer science A level. So doing as much maths and problem solving type work as possible. My final takeaway is really thinking carefully about all of this stuff, reflecting on it, and presenting yourself, let's say in the personal statement, present a narrative that reflects your personality and your passions. Be authentic. And in terms of parents and younger students, get into the habit of stretching yourself beyond the curriculum and exploring academic subjects and exploring the world around you, you know, from year 7 or even before. There is not, you may end up exploring subjects that you don't want to study. That's totally fine. That's all part of this process. I myself decided to apply for English quite late. When I was younger, I was much more interested in history and I read a lot of history. That's fine. You know, anything that is taking you beyond the curriculum and meaning that you're engaging in this process of focused academic attention is important. Okay, so I know I've gone over time. If people have questions, any more questions that I haven't answered, I'm very happy to answer them. I'm going to put up these contact details here. If you sign up for the Google form, I will send you the slides from the session. I'm just going to go back quickly through the phone and see if there's anything that I didn't. So we talked about the 4 A levels. We talked about fee status. We talked about maths. We talked about computer science. So anyone got any more questions, please do put them here and I'll happily answer them, or wait a few minutes now. If you've got any questions that, you know, occur to you, that's what always happens to me. I read something, I go to a talk and then I have a thought at 2 in the morning about what I wish I'd asked somebody. Just, you know, please do type them into the group and I'll very happily answer them, or message Saba and she will get in contact with me. So I'm going to wait a couple of minutes, but it looks like we don't have any more questions. I did the BMAT one. In terms of tutoring, if you're interested in that, please just contact me. It depends what you're looking for, whether you're looking for, you know, admissions tests, whether you're looking for personal statement help. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you for the questions and participating. I apologise for the technical thing at the beginning. I've really enjoyed today, so thank you so much. Bye bye everybody. Okay, someone's saying I can't find UCAT past papers. There are not UCAT. If you go on to the official, UCAT website, what you will, I'm going